Hello and welcome to Sound Bites. I'm your host, Holly Whitfield. I'm here on site with Savannah Kenney, owner of Jacques Louise Bakery in Overton Square. Welcome, Savannah.
Thanks for having me on.
This week, we're going to talk about your bakery, which just opened. By the time people are listening, it's been open for less than a week even, but also your journey to becoming a baker. And then we're going to talk about what's on the menu because, spoiler alert, I just got to try 3 of your desserts and they were amazing. Before we get into that, people listening, no, this is Sound Bites. It is the Daily Memphians weekly food, drink, and dining podcast. It's part of our free podcast series. Here are the newest episodes every week on WYXR Radio. You can catch us on Thursdays at 11. You can also type in Sound Bites Daily Memphian on iTunes or Spotify or whatever podcast app you're using, and you will find us. You can even stream episodes at dailymemphian.com. Again, free. If you are listening right now on WYXR, keep listening. Up next, you'll hear the Sidebar podcast with our Daily Memphian CEO, Eric Barnes, all about arts and culture in the city. This week, he's talking with reps from the Metal Museum. But let's get started with Savannah Kenney, owner of Jacques Louise Bakery. We're here on site.
Yes.
So to give people an idea, Overton Square, you enter through the courtyard back in the back where the Memphis Pizza Cafe patio is. Go through there by the little tower. It's so nice and calm in here.
Yes, especially on Mondays. I'm typically the only one here.
Yes.
And a lot of the places are not open on Mondays, and it is just so peaceful. Then Tuesdays through the weekends, it is hopping. So it's been really exciting.
That's great. So you're open Tuesdays through
Tuesday through Sunday.
Tuesday through Sunday. All right. How has it gone in the last 2 days that you've been open?
Yeah, so we officially opened Tuesday, so tomorrow will be a week.
Okay, great.
Opening. We did a soft opening the weekend before for friends and family, and then it kind of turned into a firmer opening as word got out.
That is how it goes.
Yes, it is, and we were really excited, and it has been amazing. The turnout has been more than we expected, so much so that multiple days we sold out multiple times throughout the day and had to restock. Saturday, we stocked the cold case with our fruit tarts, and within 45 minutes, they were gone. So a really good problem to have, and we're learning the demand, and it's really exciting to see everyone wanting to come and share, and then also just having a place that's safe for those of us who need gluten-free dining.
And that is the big reveal, Jacques Louise is entirely celiac-friendly, gluten-free.
Yes.
It says it on your name, on the sign, which is important for people to find it. But otherwise, at least what I've tried, you can't tell if that's a big deal. We're going to talk more about that for sure. But I want to ask you, where are you from originally? And how did you get to Memphis?
Well, I am Memphis born and raised.
Okay.
So I grew up in the kind of Berkshire area. Been here my whole life. Went to the University of Memphis.
Nice.
Stayed here. My husband and I met here. He's also from Memphis, and in 2008 we graduated college, started our photography business, and got married, all within 3 months.
Why not?
Why
just
not?
Do
we
it.
just do everything big, and you'll kind of learn throughout our journey. We're just kind of rip off the Band-Aid type people and plunge head first. So we've never left and love this city. It is just kind of where our hearts are. So we're really glad to be kind of in the middle of Memphis right now with our first retail space.
That is so exciting and inspiring. Sometimes we have to rip the Band-Aid off. So Daily Memphian had a story in mid-May from our guest writer, Kristen Yates. It covers a lot of your background and some of your celiac journey. I'll link that in our story. We have a story that goes with Sound Bites every Saturday that publishes. But tell us a little bit about that. Catch us up if folks haven't read. And I wanted to say in my sordid past as a wedding writer many, many years ago, I encountered you and your husband's work. How did you go from photographers to now you're a baker?
That's a great question. And it's a journey I didn't think I would go on. Loved what we did. We were wedding photographers for almost 17 years.
Wow.
And absolutely loved it. How we got to owning a bakery is in 2018, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. The only treatment for it is 100% gluten-free lifestyle. And so if you're from the South, you realize gluten-free options are just not available. And the ones that are typically aren't good. They're not palatable. You don't really want to partake in them. Gluten-free eating has a bad rap. A lot of times it's either focused on healthy eating. And so I know a lot of people who have diabetes go gluten-free because of the keto aspect of it. But as someone who just had to have the gluten-free aspect and not the reducing calories, low carbs, low sugar, I was kind of dying. So started baking for myself. And then friends and family were like, this is really good. You need to do more with it. And I was like, nope, this is great. Love my career. Going to do it. Then when the pandemic, when things shifted, our wedding world kind of shut down. And so that gave me time to experiment more, to grow and recipe develop, and started really falling in love with it. And 2021, I looked at Philip and I was like, I think I want to do this full time. He's like, I've been waiting for you to tell me this. He's like, I knew you were going to do it. I just was waiting for it. So December of 21, decided to start a cottage version of the bakery, which was out of our home. And then it quickly grew. I had a cold case at Snapdragon Floral I had pickups for pre-orders and then individual items that people could walk in, and then started selling wholesale to several places around town. The Hub Coffee Shop was the first one who brought me on.
Yes.
And so I owe Peter, who is the manager there.
And that's in East Memphis.
Yes, it is. Huge thanks for his trust in my little startup. And it kind of exploded from there. So now we're here in our first retail space.
Well, congrats again. The name, Jacques Louise, where does that come from?
That's a great question. So it's actually a French version of Jacques Louise. And when my husband and I were first married and we thought we were going to have kids, that was a name we loved. And ended up we did not have children.
Sure.
And it kind of kept coming back to me as we were thinking of the name. And then as I was looking up the meaning of the French version of it, because France is like my favorite place to be, my happiest place is the streets of Paris. It's where I feel alive. So I was like, let me just look up the French version of it. And the word Jacques means supplanter, which is replacer of. And so it was just kind of fitting that to be a baker who replaces gluten, that name should just fit. So
it rolls off the tongue. You mentioned France. I know that you mentioned in other stories that European travel definitely influenced your love of baking. And this is a quote from the story with Kristen that you did. The goal wasn't just safety, it was indulgence. And I just really love that. It stood out to me. Tell me about how Europe or other travels inspired that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about European culture is a little bit more walkable than American, except for some of the big cities here. And when you walk the streets of Europe, you will just see patisserie and bouloniere one after the other, and these gorgeous window displays, and you are just drawn in to these gourmet, indulgent treats. And that is something that I love to eat myself, and so wanted for other people. And then especially when it comes to gluten-free, you get more basic items. And so to be able to have the indulgent, delicate, decadent things, and the things that are gorgeous and they pull you in.
And sometimes delicate.
Yes, sometimes delicate. Those are the things that I love to be able to create, and we're able to do now, because previously I wasn't able to do it. So we've been slowly rolling out our tarts and the mousses and things like that. And one thing about those, the ones that are more decadent looking, you kind of forget they're gluten-free. And so those who are gluten-abled, they will want to have them as well. And that is the whole goal of our shop, is that you walk in and you forget for a little bit that you have either a disease or a condition that requires you to eat gluten-free, or if it's by choice. And you can kind of feel like everybody else, that everyone wants that exact same thing. And so you don't feel othered. And that also those who you bring something to a party, or like one of our cakes or our tarts, and everyone wants it. And so you don't feel like the weirdo who has to bring your own food.
Right.
And that's something with celiac disease for a lot of the years. You're having to bring your own food just so you can stay safe and not be contaminated and stuff. So when you can bring something that others want to share in, I feel like that brings the table a little bit closer.
I have so many follow-up questions. I feel like let's go ahead and just walk us through your menu. What kind of desserts do you have? And then we'll talk about the ones that we tried today specifically. But is it, bakery?
Yes.
Bread, dessert, what all you got?
Yes, so we focus primarily on desserts.
Yes.
And we've been introducing more and more breads. So the goal is to have a full bread line available. Fresh gluten-free bread is really hard to come by.
Yes.
Packaged gluten-free bread is very hard to come by. So we are expanding that line as we go and kind of get a little bit more comfortable with what it's like to own a shop. So we have tons of cookie options that are gluten-free. We also are increasing our dairy-free, gluten-free options. And one thing too that we're very conscious about is making sure that all of the allergens are labeled on our products, so people who have additional allergies and on top of just the gluten-free feel comfortable walking in. So the cookies, cakes, we do cakes are done to order, and so everything from chocolates, vanillas, strawberries, carrot cakes, things like that.
Ooh, carrot cake.
Yes, the carrot cake flies. Pies, so we have our chocolate mousse pie, key lime pie, apple pecan, just like loads of those, and seasonal ones as well. And then I'm trying to think, also quiches. So we've been doing savory items with quiches, and we have a whole menu that is to come, but that's kind of the current one where we're at.
So we tried the chocolate mousse. Tell us about that. Producer Natalie's making a heart shape with her hands. I'm doing the same. I love a chocolate mousse. It's my favorite genre of dessert, I've decided. And this one is amazing. How do you do it?
Well, it's a kind of a 3-layer dessert. It starts with a gluten-free Oreo base, and then we have a dark chocolate mousse followed with a whipped cream. Everything is made in-house, so we make all of our creams.
That's great. And then we also tried, this is the Heath. Tell us.
Yeah. So the Heath cookie, I do have to attribute that creation to my best friend Megan, who's like, I love a Heath cookie. She's like, can you make me one?
Yeah.
And that's where that came from. So really and truly, the thing that got me started as a baker to then pursue this full-time was our dark chocolate chip cookie. I would bring that to parties and it would fly. And then so much so that the gluten-free people were like, I didn't get one. And so that
sign of success.
Yes. That was the thing that kind of launched everything. So we have our chocolate chip cookie base that we do for the dark chocolate chip cookie, and then have alternated with it with the Heath. We have an M&M version as well, and then I've played around with a couple of other ingredients in them.
I would say these are not like a giant cookie. But it's not small either. It's bigger than a palm. It's nice and thick. I think it's balanced. Sometimes people have like a really crunchy cookie. Sometimes they have something that's so super soft. I like the ones that are kind of soft on the outside, chewy on the inside. And I know you warm these up as you serve them to us, and so that's just an additional part of the experience. But that's how I would describe it. It's really balanced and really good, and that has that like kind of toffee stickiness, but doesn't like stick to any part of your mouth. It's just delicious. Okay, so you said the cookies were kind of the thing that got you started. Is that like the first thing that you really baked that you baked again and again to try and perfect?
Yes.
Or was there another dessert? Or like what was the next one after the cookies?
After that, the cookie was definitely the first. It actually took me about 3 years to develop that recipe, to get it to where you didn't feel like you had dried cardboard or chalk, because that's what a lot of gluten-free products are. And I was like, I want a moist cookie that melts in your mouth and has that chewy aspect and isn't just going to crumble into pieces. So that one took about 3 years to develop. And then during that time, that kind of helped all of my skill set when it came to gluten-free baking and learning the substitutions, what worked, what didn't work. So I think the next thing that came after that was probably cakes.
Yes.
And learning like what makes them a really good balanced cake, what's going to make it moist, make it surely it's tender and like melts in your mouth versus just kind of like crumbly and dry cake.
Right. Nobody wants that. I know you don't want to give away your secrets, especially after saying that you worked on them for years and years, but can you talk about some of like the gluten-free substitutions and different kinds of flour or different kinds of ingredients that you use, or something that maybe people don't know about that?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things with gluten-free baking that people don't think about is hydration levels. So most of the time, the flours that are being substituted in are going to need a much higher hydration added to it. So if you're using like a lot of my flours, I do personal blends, and so I'm making the flour myself. I don't make the flour, but I blend the flour. So some of them have, rice flour, potato starches, tapioca. Those things absorb water very, very quickly. So if you're using the same ratio of, milk or oils with a high absorption rate flour, that's where you're going to get that dryness. So a lot of the things we do, I'm having to overhydrate so that the flour itself can absorb it and then leave room within the recipe to use that hydration the places it needs to.
I noticed you didn't mention almond flour.
Correct.
Say more.
Yes. So a lot of people use almond flour as a substitute in gluten-free baking. I personally don't love it. It is extremely dry. You have to add a ton of moisture in it to get that. It also can be really, really gritty. So that is one I stay away from, as well as it is a nut. So that within the allergies too, you do have to worry about that. There are a few things that I do use it in. Macarons, they call for an almond flour, and so that is used in that. But for the most part, I kind of avoid it.
That's amazing. That's not what I would have thought. I would have been very surprised. Okay. So this space that we're in, talk about what all you have done to it, because this space is sort of taking the reins from 17 Berkshire. We had their owner on several months ago on Sound Bites, and then she kind of handed it over to you. Tell us a little bit about that, but also tell us about how different the space is now.
Yeah. So when Noah and I were talking about this, I knew I'd be stepping into a place that was already really loved by the city. And it was iconic for its look. It stood out. It was a very unique space.
Very white,
bright. And bright. A look on European feel, but very different than where we are now. So coming into it, I knew that being a bakery in an existing bakery coming into the space, I wanted it to feel completely different. So when people walked in, they could feel the difference in it. So we drastically changed the wall colors and the look. So it's now a really deep gray, a very warm gray, one that my husband and I spent a long time picking out.
Yes.
All to discover that it is in our house, and it is a paint color we already use.
Are you serious?
Yes, we went through hundreds of paint chips, and then by the time we put it on, we're like, this is in our home already,
that's my favorite thing I've ever heard.
Part of, I think, our draw to it is we wanted the place to feel homey. We wanted people to walk in, especially those that have the food allergies, and feel their shoulders come down a little bit, because when you are trying to eat out and you have food allergies, you're on high alert. So for people to be able to walk in, the shoulders can release a little bit and they can feel comfortable and at home. That's the feeling I wanted, and kind of the aesthetic we wanted to be able to replicate within the walls. Even as we picked out the chairs, we wanted something that would surround the body and it would feel comfortable, like a warm hug, and you could feel cozy and just relax for a little bit. And then the artwork is actually, they're all photographs that my husband has taken in our journeys through Europe. So, and then the other aspect is the copper highlights.
Yes.
So our front counter bar and then parts of the ceilings are copper foiled, which Philip and I did ourselves. And
bravo.
Thank you. I will never do that again. I love the look of it, but that was exhausting. And the copper is actually a draw from the French kitchens. And if you think back to Julia Child's kitchen and the wall behind her with the pegboard of the copper pots, that was the biggest inspiration for that. We wanted a statement piece, something that could draw you in and you would see it from outside. And the copper has just kind of always had my heart. And so to kind of pull on that French theme, to be able to have those French copper pots kind of replicated into the materials of the bar was huge for us.
Also, the chairs are really comfortable. Did you guys pick out the chairs?
We did. We went through several different chairs. Ordered several that were like, this is great, and sat them and we're like, absolutely not. And that was too, we wanted to make sure that any body size would feel comfortable in it, something that anybody could just sit and relax in and feel like they could enjoy a cup of coffee with their pastries and just relax for a little bit.
Yeah, no knock against any shops or anything, but a lot of times with a smaller baker or smaller shop, like a lot of people are just kind of picking up orders, or they're picking up pre-orders. Maybe they're not hanging around. And so the chairs, I feel like, can kind of be an afterthought. There's also like, it's now like memed, those metal chairs that you get at like trendy millennial bistros. This is none of that.
No.
It's like a soft, cushy, like light gray something chair. Anyways, I just noticed that I'm just with the back. I noticed that like right away, and it's just a small thing.
Absolutely. And that's something that does go back a little bit to those French cafes. Like the French culture, as well as most of European culture, you have a small living space and you do a lot of living outside of your home. You're meeting people outside of the home. You're sitting in the cafes. You're having 2, 3, 4 hour dinners, and it's a place that is really comfortable and you're wanting to linger. So I do, even though we are small, I think we have 12 12 seats. I can't remember exactly now.
There's several tables in here. Yeah.
I still want people to be able to meet, have a cup of coffee, sit for a long time with your friends or by yourself with a good book, and just get comfortable and not feel like you're rushed and just slow down just a little bit.
So speaking of that, you guys have Wi-Fi in here, and you do have an espresso machine. You have drinks. So like, this is a bakery, but you've got a little bit of a coffee shop vibe going on. Tell me about the drinks. You have a few posted on your Instagram. The Gold Star Latte.
Yes.
What is it?
The Gold Star Latte. So that is actually a nod back to a little bit. 17 Berkshire had one, and it was a classic favorite. We retained the front of house manager as well as she was the head barista, and it was kind of a cult classic. So she did a little bit of a twist on that one. So it is very herb and spice heavy. So it has turmeric, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon. Probably going to forget a few things that are in there, and that's like a
secret ingredients.
Yes, Macy will tell you if you ask. And so that's like the simple syrup. We do that as a latte that you can do. And you can also do it as a steamer. So if you're looking for something without the hit of caffeine, you can do a steamed milk, and we have dairy alternatives. Steamed milk with that simple syrup. That is the Gold Star simple syrup, and it is delightful. Or you can add the espresso to it and get a little extra hit on the
I like that. I'm super sensitive to caffeine, so sometimes I'm like, give it to me, and other times I'm like, is there anything on this menu that's not going to give me heart palpitations?
Absolutely.
That isn't just straight like decaf version. I also see a matcha drink on here on your Instagram.
Yes. So we have matcha in different forms. You can get it the classic way of just straight. You can do it as a latte. And then we have a special, which is the Bramble Bush matcha latte. And it has a simple syrup of a tri-berry blend. So it's blackberry, raspberry, and a blueberry. And then there's also a rosemary simple syrup that's added into it. So you get a little bit of those herbs in there for that nice little balance.
What is your favorite drink?
Oh my goodness. My favorite drink would probably be, I'm kind of basic when it comes to coffee.
You got a lot of other flavors you're working with.
I do.
I understand.
So I typically go for a straight latte or a cafe au lait. And we'll be
underrated.
It is very underrated. I think a cafe au lait is kind of like just the perfect hit. And so we're actually going to be bringing in the traditional cafe au lait bowls that they serve in France. And it's just a massive cup of coffee and steamed milk, and it is like perfect. So that does balance well, especially if you're going for a more decadent piece of mousse pie. You don't want to hit a simple syrup in there. You can have a really good balanced coffee to go with your dessert.
Anything about the coffee beans or coffee that you're using?
Yeah, so we use a local roaster, S8E23 Coffee, female owned, operated, and they also S8E23, yes. And they also source from female owned farms. So as a female business owner, do love that I can support others. And the stories behind some of their farms are simply amazing. And those are listed on their website.
That's amazing. We have some time left. We're going to get into some questions about Overton Square, some questions about owning a business, and your recommendations, which I am putting all our guests through on Soundbites. But I want to remind people this is the Daily Memphians Soundbites podcast with me, Holly Whitfield. Today we're talking with Savannah Kenney. She's the owner of Jacques Louise Bakery in Overton Square. If you are listening to this right now on WYXR, thank you for that. And I recommend you keep listening for the Sidebar podcast. It's our culture show with Eric Barnes, Daily Memphian CEO, right after this show. If you're listening through your podcast app, take the time to subscribe so you don't miss any of our weekly episodes. If you're feeling frisky, you can also leave us a review. And if you're feeling really wild, go ahead and email me, hwhitfield@dailymemphian.com, with guest ideas or questions or thoughts or feelings. Comment. Just give us some feedback. We're here to make this be a conversation. Okay, back to Savannah. I wanted to ask, so you're in Overton Square. What's it like owning a business in Overton Square? And, you know, we talk about this on every episode now, but people are like, oh, everything's closing because of crime or whatever. What's your take on that? What's it been like having business here?
Yeah, we love Overton Square. It is one of the things, as we were looking for space, we were looking for about a year and a half. For a long time, all over Memphis, looking to find the perfect spot. We wanted something that was going to have walkability, traffic that would just kind of find us on accident. Because some of my favorite places I have found because I walked by and just peeked in the window and was like, oh my gosh, I have to check this place out. So Overton Square offered that. Also, as a Memphian, the history of Overton Square drew me to the space. And so when it became available to us, my husband and I knew, like, we have to jump on this. This is the perfect thing. We were here one night, probably the first week we had the keys, and we were doing remodeling. We were cleaning the grease trap that day, which is one of the grossest things you'll ever do. Had the windows papered up, and I walked out, and it was the Square movie night. And the cafe lights were on, children were running around, people were singing. And I just remember getting so teary, being like, this is just magical. The environment that has been created to draw people out, to draw people into a community together was something that felt magical. And that's something I think is really unique to the Square, and something that Overton Square's management has done a really good job about doing, is saying, you know what, Memphis might have a bad rap when it comes to crime, but we're not going to let that distract us, and we're going to still show up, and we're going to be a community that wants to be out and living life full of joy.
Right. And for every place that moves on and their owners move on, like, another one opens. And here we are sitting in this space that showcases that. And you're surrounded by places that have been open for decades, if we're talking about Memphis Pizza Cafe and the Indian Restaurant and so many others. So just wanted to get some context on that. Okay, if you're going out for gluten-free in Memphis, or maybe you're not, talk to us. And it's not just gluten-free, though. It's like, it's celiac-friendly. Is that the right term?
Yes.
Okay. Give us some recommendations. Give us some thoughts, because I know that it's hard to find.
It is. That is one of the reasons I left a career that I really, really loved, because it is really hard to do, especially in Memphis. There are limited options for those of us with celiac disease because of cross-contamination. So minuscule amounts of cross-contamination can leave us sick for a very long time, and it does internal damage that won't be seen, so you have to be really, really careful.
Right.
One of my favorite places did close down. It was 100% safe with Bounty. But when we were going out, places that are doing really well with cross-contamination have been City Silo. They take their allergies very, very seriously.
That's right.
Also, the lobbyists downtown.
Okay.
I happen to know the chef and chef de cuisine, and they do a really good job about making sure that dishes are safe. They've made special things for us when I've come in, like if I know ahead of time that we're going to be there and we put on the reservation, then they'll make sure to take care of that. And that's kind of about it. There just are really not a ton of options, but we hope that this bakery is kind of the first of solid gluten-free things, and then we can expand to doing more cafe styles, restaurants. Like, we have big plans for the gluten-free community of Memphis.
That's really exciting. What about at home? Who cooks at home? What kind of things do you like to make?
We both cook at home. So my husband and I both, my husband Philip, we both cook a lot. We love food. So we cook a lot of different things. So Indian is one of our favorite things to cook. I have a spice cabinet that's literally just Indian spices. Philip loves to grill. He also is really good at doing like breakfast for dinner. So he has a lot of different, he can make a mean pancake like no one's business.
It takes a skill.
It really does. It's like that perfect goldenness on that first flip. He's got it down. Also sandwiches. We make a ton of gourmet sandwiches at home. So I use my focaccia bread that we do sell in store and have made a ton of different versions of sandwiches on that, different like panini style things. And then I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, we make a lot of pizza at home. So there is a pizza dough that will be coming eventually.
Ooh,
yes.
That's good.
And like kind of a flatbread style. So that is something we do a lot.
Do you have a pizza oven at home, or do you just use your oven?
Typically just use my oven. Yeah. Super high heat on a baking stone.
We just got a gas grill at my house, and we got this like pizza oven thing that you put in the grill, and we have no idea what we're doing or how to use it. So that's why I'm like selfishly asking every guest about their grilling and pizza making tips and ideas.
There is a whole art to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned on that. But, okay. Just to finish out, I wanted to talk a little bit about, the challenges of opening a new business. We've written plenty of stories about all the codes and requirements and inspections. That's the word I'm looking for, inspections that you have to go through. But what has been the biggest challenge in moving from, like you said, the cottage baking industry with those rules and now fully commercial retail space?
Oh, man. We could write a book on it.
Maybe you should.
Probably. So we rushed this in the sense of like we got the keys April 14th and then we're open May 29th. So within 6 weeks we got open, which is apparently is unheard of.
That's unheard of. That's the fastest I've ever heard of anything opening ever.
I kind of do and don't recommend it at the same time. Love that we were able to serve our clientele really quickly.
Yes.
We pulled some 15, 16-hour days to get to it. One thing that was super helpful is the head of construction here at Loeb had kind of a spreadsheet of just like, here are the things you got to do. We were able to go through that with all of the inspections. We found some fun little hidden surprises that you just kind of have to learn how to get over.
Yes.
And our life motto at this point, Philip and I's, is we'll figure it out. And that has literally been, as a business owner, you kind of just go, well, I'll figure it out. And you do. So we also, during the build out for the bakery, we actually suffered a house fire in February. And so
I'm so sorry.
It has been, we've been rebuilding our house and building out the bakery at the exact same time. So has been a little bit of chaos. So I think our journey is a little different than most business owners. But if you have a good support team, you have friends and family who are going to be, dropping off food, coming in for moral support, dropping off bottles of wine to get you through the long nights. That's the thing I would recommend the most. If you're starting a new business, make sure your core people are there, that they can kind of prop you up on those long, hard days.
That's really good advice, I think, for business and just doing anything that requires you to rip that Band-Aid off and try. Okay. I also wanted to say, I bet a lot of people find you as they're trying to, share a meal with their loved ones or find a gluten-free dessert. I know that's one thing that, as I've started to host more people over the years, I've, remembered to ask everybody, what are we doing? We have vegan friends, we have friends that do nitrate-free stuff. And so it can be a lot of pressure if you are not living it day to day yourself. You want to get the right thing and you want to be able to bring it. And I bet a lot of people find you that way, as well as people who are, doing it themselves. Is that what you found?
Yeah, we actually have. And that's the one thing I'm really excited about now, having the retail space, is having the availability to have more options for walk-in if you're going to a party and you realize, oh my goodness, somebody has a food allergy. I need to be able to get something for that, to be able to increase those offerings for the day of. But we also have where you can pre-order. So if you know ahead of time that hey, I'm hosting a party and I have a dairy-free and gluten-free allergy you need to cover, then we have options for that. And so it is one of those things that when you're living with it, you're thinking about it all the time.
Right.
And when you're not, it can come to mind later. And so we want to make sure that we have those options and availability. So that's why we are open a little bit later. So as you're going home from work and you're needing to think, I got to pick up something. Hopefully we can have those for everyone.
What is your best-selling dessert?
Okay. So far, it's actually been our cinnamon rolls.
Oh.
Yes, we sell out of cinnamon rolls.
Bread related.
Our cinnamon rolls sell out so fast. So right now we have three options. You can buy it by the pan, or we have them individually with, one has a cream cheese frosting on top and the other is cream cheese with apple pie. So it's...
My eyes just got wide.
Pretty...
You can't see it if you're listening.
Perfect. So those have been our top sellers, and then our tarts, and we're pulling out a line of those, and we're soon to introduce a dairy-free tart as well. Those have been flying.
So these little fruit tarts mostly? Okay.
Yeah, so the ones that we've had this past weekend, we had one that was a lemon tart. So it was a lemon curd with the house whipped cream on top. And then also we had a strawberries and cream. So it was a pastry cream, tart shell, pastry cream, and then fresh strawberries on top.
Thank you so much for talking through all this and describing all these delicious treats. That's all the time we have. Thank you, Savannah. This is Soundbites, Daily Memphian's podcast about food, dining. Listen for free all the time. Read along with accompanying podcast stories every Saturday, dailymemphian.com, where you can also stream these episodes on your phone or computer if you're not already streaming them on your podcast apps. Thank you again.
Thank you.